Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoding Downtowns, brought to you by Vistity. In this podcast, we dive deep with leaders from business improvement districts across the nation, revealing the strategies that are shaping the future of urban development and economic growth. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jamie Schwartzman. Welcome to Decoding Downtowns. Today on the podcast, we are going to downtown Long Beach. We're speaking to James Ahumada. He's the Senior Vice President and Deputy CEO of the Downtown Long Beach Alliance in Long Beach, California. James, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks, Jamie. Excited to be here.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about Long Beach, maybe for some listeners who are not familiar with the area.
Yeah, Long Beach as a city is probably really centrally located, in between Orange County and LA. It's literally at that elbow, but has one of the only three, I think, downtowns on the shoreline. So that makes us a little bit unique between San Diego and San Francisco. But the city as a whole, a lot of cool things going on. Major university, Long Beach State, airport, and then what we have in downtown is really the financial sector, where we have the Port of Long Beach as well. Is a big part of downtown and one of the most busiest ports. So super fun, super busy to be over here, but excited to answer some questions.
Yeah, Long Beach is just adjacent to San Pedro, the largest port in the country, right?
Well, yeah, and together they are the largest complex, exactly. I think they compete over what exact number one title they can get, the cargo out, the cargo in, and the different ways that they differentiate. They both can claim number one of something, but together they are the biggest in, I think, the world.
Wow. So listen, place management organizations are structured differently. Tell us about the Alliance, how you're structured, how you financed.
Yeah, so we are organized with basically we have three divisions here. Myself, I oversee the marketing and communication side, some of the government affairs work, and then a lot of the placemaking and the operations team. And then our CEO manages a lot of our economic development, public outreach kind of efforts. Also in the government affairs side, and then he also oversees our events, so pretty cool on that front. And then our third division is our finance and administration team, and they do amazing work. They're really the ones that are talking to the board members, working with doing all the assessment rates per the different types of assessors that are paying. So that's businesses. We have two bids in our downtown that we manage. We have the market-based bid, and then the property-based improvement district. And so the property bid is a bit more focused on the operation side. So that's where you'll have our clean and safe team, and that's who pays for that. And then our merchant-based folks do more of they get some of the marketing services and administrative support and some of those things. Economic development.
So there's a member-based side of this where businesses are members of the bid?
Yeah, so all the businesses in the larger district of the bid, kind of hard if you're not exactly familiar with the streets, but if within the larger district, all of those businesses would pay an assessment on their business license. And then in a smaller footprint of that bid, there's the property-based improvement district. And those are the property owners that own, you're familiar with the hub or the other buildings that are in that kind of downtown core area.
Got it. So Senior Vice President and Deputy CEO, what's that job like? What do you do every day?
Yeah, well, I came back with my background is actually from the city side. I worked for a few years with the mayor and his chief of staff and managed his team citywide. Really fun in that environment, a lot of business recruitment, a lot of similar things that I kind of do here now, but very focused. This is hyper-focused in downtown. So while there, you're kind of, whether we're growing space, beach, and aerospace technology over in North Long Beach, we may try to, how do we funnel some of that effort over here? I particularly look over the communications and marketing efforts, operations and placemaking, kind of manage a lot of the external visible functions of the organization.
And so how do you participate, and how does your organization participate in supporting economic development in downtown Long Beach?
A lot of different ways. So first off, we have a really cool team of economic development staff, and they kind of go multiple prongs. I can't say that there's one individual one, but I will say the two new ones that they've been doing more are these kind of community-focused forums, where every month it's either a mug-to-mug in the morning or a happy hour in the evening. Seems kind of generic, of course, but in the way that they've really created some life around it, especially where businesses need to have partners or find some B2B agreement they can support each other and promote in the different neighborhoods. That's been a really a strong program that our team has been doing. We've been seeing an uptick in attendance to all of those. And so I think and that's just really community building. So that's inviting business owners, inviting property owners to get together for those, so they can count on a coffee every month and count on kind of a social atmosphere once a month as well in the evenings. I'd say on top of that, there's actually our Brokers by the Beach effort, which is where we bring a bunch of brokers 4 times a year to downtown, and we really just kind of wine and dine them and show them around and say, here's the newest building that's opened, here's the newest restaurant and their best wine or their best kind of appetizers. And so we're showing them all these cool things, and then we'll have the mayor come out and everyone really talk about why they should invest in downtown. And those have been really fun. I think the more interesting thing about those events is our economic development manager has been putting them on rooftops to make sure that they see the whole skyline that you have behind you. And so folks can kind of really get the full sense of what downtown has to offer.
What are some of the challenges that are going on in downtown Long Beach right now in economic development?
Yeah, I probably would wager that they're similar to, I think, what a lot of folks are dealing with. I think, office space has not, or office return to work has not happened, and I don't think that will happen. So really trying to navigate, how do we do that? How do we approach these buildings? There's been some really great, of course, I think everyone's talked about adaptive reuse and trying to do some new housing efforts in some of the old office buildings. We know the difficulty with that. I think there's a lot of new business sectors that we're trying to bring in to downtown would be great. I mentioned aerospace being something that Long Beach is known for right now through Space Beach. If you're not familiar, the city is pretty directed focus on recruiting aerospace companies. So we have about 15 or so that are now in the former kind of a Boeing space that we had in North Long Beach. And that's now someone that we can kind of try to see if we can have a more direct marriage, I guess, with and what they do for recruitment there. But yeah, so I think that's a big hurdle, is what do we do with all this square footage? Granted, we don't have the same problems that I see in New York and downtown LA necessarily. They have much larger numbers, but we still have that as a problem. And then, during the day, I think lunchtime traffic is the next issue with that, because that becomes directly related to folks being here throughout the day. And we haven't seen that change very much either.
So you're saying the day part, your typical, 9 to 5 weekday day part is showing a continued slowdown, hasn't really come back?
Not fully. I think there's good signs. And I think one of the things that we've been trying to do is, on the marketing side, work more directly with the buildings that have a lot of new people here. We have probably in the last, I'd say, 7 or 8 years done about 4,000 units, which is great. So we were already making that plan before those. So that's before the pandemic. We were moving this direction. Excellent. But I think we're, getting folks familiar with the restaurants that are right downstairs, right across the street, rather than going to the one over at the beach, right on the shoreline. That's been the kind of hurdle, like trying to get them to stay right across there. Like don't drive, walk, right? So I think that's been the thing on the marketing side we've been trying to encourage more. But that goes hand in hand with economic development, making sure that those businesses that invested so much time and money have the patrons to get there. So, and then giving them pointers and talking to them about their social media and their marketing efforts. And so that's been another big piece of our economic development focus, is training business owners. How do they leverage their social media traffic? How do they, get out there in front of more people than just their normal audience?
So what about, let's just talk about data for a minute, and economic development data and what you guys are tracking, and not just what you're tracking, but what do you think people care the most about when you think about investors, developers, businesses? What do they keep their eyes on?
So we put out every year our economic impact report for downtown Long Beach. And I think we find it to be a really great resource. One of the questions I tend to get the most is just foot traffic, honestly. So Placer AI tends to be the data that we use for that. I'm sure you're familiar. I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar. So Placer has been great for us to show, hey, you know what, maybe we are having some lunchtime difficulties, but look at the nighttime traffic. Look at how the events are turning out. And that's really bounced back quite tremendously. And so when we see our events, that's hitting 2019 numbers, 2018 numbers, but it's really just kind of that daytime traffic that we know isn't there, because we can look at things like Placer, right? And then we can try to say, hey, this is maybe the business model you may need to move more directly to. And I get a lot of foot traffic questions more than other things, I would say.
So James, how are you telling the story of economic development, and what is the story that you're telling?
Exactly. So I think the cool thing is that I've already prepped ourselves a little bit for some of those, and that's those three things: the Link and Learn, Mug to Mug, and the Brokers by the Beach events. The speakers that we have there, we have people who have just invested, who invested 10 or 20 years ago in properties, and letting them talk about the story, right? Which mostly is that it's a resilient downtown, just like it's a resilient city, and letting that kind of lead the message. Having our mayor be a champion for that too. He's been a huge advocate for urban centers, downtown being a walkable place that you can do fun things. So that's kind of the message that we've been going with. It's that, yeah, there was some difficulty, but the resiliency is there, and that there are a lot of fun things to do, and complement your kind of experience. So I think what we've just launched recently is a new campaign called Opposite of Ordinary. So we spent last year doing a bunch of focus groups and meeting with business owners, artists that just like to have their art up in downtown, muralists. We had some property owners, not as many on the property owner side, but definitely a lot of business owners and people who live in residence downtown. And so we did about 2 days of focus groups, and then we did a survey for a couple months, and then that all informed the definition of downtown, which we put into this nice package brief, which has defined everything that we put out moving forward. And basically it's that downtown Long Beach is everything that you know it is and then it isn't. So the opposite of ordinary being that you're not going to find it anywhere else. It kind of has a mishmash that just makes sense, and it's a beautiful beach view on a city street. So and that's kind of the way that we're going with it, and we're letting that also help kind of frame the economic development message, because I think something that's changed over the years from these organizations is that it has to be a destination marketing. You have to talk about, like, the bid can't just say do business here. It's also got to be what's the experience here, and then bring other people besides people that are going to open their business to come and patronage them. So
how do you see, digital dashboards, digital tools, data visualization? Do you see that playing any role in your future efforts?
Yeah, and I've seen ebbs and flows. So before I was with the city, which we did a huge investment on our technology and improvement program over there, especially during COVID, people wanted to see exactly what was happening, where their city's numbers were versus others. So digital dashboards are huge for transparency, for clear communication to folks. At Long Beach State, when I worked there for several years, also huge for students to just see, where are my dollars going? Where's my tuition going, right? I think that there is a huge space for that in downtown. I don't know if that's been our focus just yet. I think that will be, especially as folks when we really figure out what the message is with some of these office spaces and what they can be converted to, not just residential, like what will that be, and then how does that growth look? That's great for a live dashboard report. I don't know if we're there yet for us in particular, but I have seen a couple of bids out there do that, move in that direction. For me personally, I think the better way for us to use a digital dashboard is probably in the clean and safe team. So more on the operations side, just to show, hey, this is how many visits we did at that business. This is the amount of times that we cleaned this street. It's the amount of times we pressure washed this area. And so they're showing that it's being taken care of every day. And I think that that's a huge spot for digital dashboards.
Interesting. So let's look ahead in the one short year that's coming. It's August 2024. So just crystal ball things, 1 year out, August 2025. What's on the table? What do we need to get done in the next one short year?
Well, our big thing right now is we're working on our downtown plan. So we're working through this for the next a little over a year, when we have two big parcels. One is right on the ocean, and that has its own thing because you got the Coastal Commission involved. And then you have our larger parcel, which is we call it PD 30. And both of those are going through kind of a review right now, bunch of community feedback. So our key goal is going to be to get as many residents and business owners and property owners to be a part of those conversations. And that's all talking about zoning. So it's like, what can you build where? What's permitted to have a certain type of business license in different locations? For our downtown residents, just an example, we need more grocery stores. So how do we build a zoning policy that kind of allows for that, or creates opportunity for businesses to come in and see that? So if that's more residential density, let's look at that. Anyway, so those are the kind of things that we're working on this next year, and that's extremely important. But I would be remiss if I didn't say we're also not looking 4 years ahead. I'm thinking about 2028 and the Olympics. So
yeah, well, let's talk about that, because 2028 is coming. We just saw the close of the 2024 games in Paris. The torch is being passed. It's coming to Los Angeles. How do you see that impacting Long Beach?
in so many ways, actually. So we have a huge density of hotels, which is great because of our convention center. So we do know while we have right now we're scheduled for 7 or 8 games, which is a good amount. Obviously, most of the games will be throughout in downtown LA and around the region. Santa Monica will have some. I'm sure the other venues will have them as well. But we know that they're going to need more hotels, and so we have a lot of space here. We have 2 new ones coming online too. The Fairmont Breakers, which is a 1930s building, which is just beautiful and is going to be reopened this year. And then we have the Hard Rock Hotel opening right before the Olympics. So I think those will give even more numbers to our hotel population. So that'll be huge. But then just also hosting the game. So we'll be having at least the triathlon and I think 6 other sports as well. And so how do we host the coastline? How do we encourage public works in the city to do more development on that coastline so they can have a bit more fun and more venues and more bars and eateries? So we're working on that too. But we do expect quite a few people coming to Long Beach and to downtown just by our hotels alone.
Well, I mean, you must be somewhat used to it. You've got the Grand Prix, you've got, the major attractions and all types of huge concert events that go on in the area. So does that help prepare you for what's coming?
100%. I think it does. I think it's going to be a different type of folk that come because the good thing for us is that because, like I mentioned at the beginning, Long Beach is kind of that elbow between Orange County and LA County. It's that last city before you hit Orange County. It does make it kind of easy to get around and visit everywhere. But we know a lot of folks are going to be coming. We'll be international travelers who will have more things on their list to do, like Disneyland and other things, than just our events that we have in Long Beach. So we do think we serve a nice purpose for that. We are right at the A line, which connects straight to downtown LA. So that's pretty nice too for folks that don't want to drive. We know Mayor Bass in LA also said no cars or less cars as we get ready for the Olympics. So we think our A line should be a nice asset for that. But yeah, I think we're well positioned because of all the practice we have. We also do amazing festivals at the Queen Mary, which keeps us pretty busy too, and a lot of car traffic and bus traffic that we're quite used to.
All right, so let's shift gears. Let's pretend for a moment. Let's make believe that you have been handed a magic wand. You've been given the power to cast a spell to promote the vitality of downtown Long Beach. James Ahumada, how would you use your magic wand?
Yeah, so two things come to mind. I think, and I kind of alluded to some of them in different ways, but the first one would be how do we fully bridge the opportunity that downtown provides for our university? When I've traveled relatively to a lot of universities, to a lot of downtowns, and when you talk to mayors or university presidents, one of the things they often will say is that the growth of their city is largely in part due to their university and the education that it brings and the type of folks that it brings that want to research and do more. So our downtown Long Beach has been talking about for decades connecting to Long Beach State, and I think that would be huge. And especially I was reading an article last week, I forget which publication, but it was talking about this exact issue and looking at vertical universities. So how do you use that vacant office space and do something where you incentivize the universities to come in? It's great for the city as a whole. You have a whole new lifeblood of people who are coming in that maybe have not experienced the city before. And so I think that's a huge opportunity. And I would love to wave my magic wand and have that happen. And then second would be tapping in, and I think I mentioned it, tapping into the aerospace industry that we have going on, our Space Beach efforts. If we already have SpaceX and all these big companies in relativity space and people sending folks to the moon and people orbiting for I think it's commercial travel to space, then we should be seeing like how do we build that industry a little bit further to downtown, which we haven't fully figured that out yet either.
Great visions. Hey, before we wrap, tell us how we can keep our eyes on downtown Long Beach and what you guys are doing, and you in particular.
Yeah, so for downtown Long Beach, we actually just did the name is the same, but we changed our handles to DTLB Alliance. Some of our other neighbors in the area have done something similar. Kind of goes back to our destination first conversation that we were having. So we're on all the channels at DTLB Alliance, including TikTok, which is a fun endeavor. And then me, I'm at James Ahumada for all my handles, and that's what I put out and stay involved. And that's all I got. That's all I got.
Cool. Well, great conversation. I'm excited to come down to Long Beach. I'd love to come and see you and explore the town a little bit together.
Yeah, happy to be a host.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast. And to our guests, thanks again for listening to another episode of Decoding Downtowns. I'd also like to put a shout out to Vicity for sponsoring our podcast. And until we meet up again, keep exploring and innovating in your district.
Thank you for joining us today for Decoding Downtowns. If you've enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's brought to you by Vicity, the leading geospatial visualization platform for data-driven decisions. Stay connected, stay informed, and let's continue to shape the future of our cities together. Until next time, I'm Jamie Schwartzman.